Hey guys, just some higher level tips for my Daedric defensive sword and board build here with the Coral Oscillator. Learned a couple of things in the last little while since publishing those videos that I'll share with you guys. Came up with a really good idea, which is for kiting certain things like tanks, for like double minigun heavy bipeds that rush you, anything that rushes you down but's pretty heavy. So not like an Alula double Viento lightweight user, because they can close the gap quite quickly. But something to note is that moving backwards is slower than in hardlock than it is in softlock, because when your mech turns around you actually gain some speed. So I don't know if you just saw there, but I move at about 314 when I go backwards. Yeah, I can get 314, whereas when I go forwards I have about 341. So as long as you're not shooting regularly, this won't work if you need to use the shield as well, because it's going to turn you around. But you'll notice when I soft lock here and move backwards, if I pop my missile, I stay backwards, but I will automatically turn around after a small delay. And because the missiles, I'll be firing very intermittently, there'll be large gaps between each shot. That means I'm going to be able to get a lot of time moving extra fast like this. So you can notice pre-fire there before the lock-on secured. But yeah, a very good strategy to draw out that initial like chase down, forcing them to close the gap, spend a lot of energy before we need to switch to the Zimmerman and start going in close quarters. Another thing that I've learned, and you're going to see in some of the clips, is that you don't want to purge the missiles too early in the fight. Even on matchups that you might seem like you want to just have Zimmerman and punch. Mastering the correct purge is going to be pretty essential, so that you have the ability to poke with the missiles when people try to run away to get their stagger bar recovered. Especially like Alula users can be faster than you and can create space. So you'll find that I've started to hold off on purging the missiles until I'm pretty deep into the initial stagger race, usually when I'm like one Zimmerman away, and just purge the missiles, pop the Zimmerman, and then go for the punch. In the follow-up fight, if that's not enough to kill them, you're going to have to be more aggressive and force the distance a little bit closer. But a lot of times by that point, we don't even need a stagger to kill them. We can just finish them off with a regular coral slash. Their health is so low. Okay, let's jump into the clips, and I'll just give you some higher level tips on individual matchups. Actually, you know what? I forgot to mention two more things that I think are going to be pretty essential in builds like this. It's going to be related to the purging aspect of the game. So first off, there's a silly gimmick that's going on, and I do hope they patch this. I'm going to mention it in my next video for lists of, I guess, predictions of what I think is going to be patched in the future. Again, because my last one was pretty successful. But the if you purge your right hand rather than your right shoulder, or left hand rather than your left shoulder, you'll swap to the weapon if it's possible. So I'm just going to do it with the missiles here. So I'm not going to initiate a weapon swap. I'm just going to purge that. You'll notice the Zimmerman comes out. That's actually a bad thing, because it means we can't purge the missiles and immediately go into a stagger extension punch before using the Coral Oscillator and the Zimmerman. So this is going to come up a lot of the time when you've got your missiles out and you manage to, like you're chasing fighters, and you manage to stagger them with the Coral Oscillator. You can't immediately go into a punch, even if you're like spamming the trigger. It's going to auto swap. Now you can get around this by QB canceling immediately after the purge. So like if I do this, use the missiles, purge, and then immediately go like QB dodge, then I can punch. But those precious seconds matter. So unfortunately, I don't think it's a good habit to to purge the right hand at all for now until they fix that. It can lead to some like unreliability issues. Like, okay, did the Zimmerman or did the QB cancel work, and am I okay to purge? Or am I going to accidentally purge the Zimmerman next? So what I've been doing in order to keep it reliable is making a muscle memory habit of pressing R1 to swap away from the missiles, then holding the left on the D-pad and pressing R1 again. I am only using R1 for this whole maneuver, and it will reliably swap me to the Zimmerman. So if I say shoot missiles, I'm ready to purge. I'm going to R1 and then purge. This also means that I don't have to wait for the purge animation to complete to shoot the Zimmerman. So doubly advantageous. There is a solution for kiters, like I said, so you can do the whole QB cancel purge. I don't recommend it, but it is possible to do this. It's gonna expend some energy, unfortunately, and yeah, depending on how much energy you have, like if you don't have enough to, let's say you burned your battery, it can lead into some mistakes when we're having to make decisions on the fly in close quarters. So I probably wouldn't recommend it. Okay, and then one other tip here, just for squeezing out more damage on punishes. Counter assault armoring pulse armor users that don't have enough stability to basically not get restaggered. So anything like heavy bipeds or smaller that will be true staggered after the counter assault armor, you can actually get 4, maybe even 5 punches depending into the combo here. So let's pretend that after I do my first punch, because this enemy staggered, they pop pulse armor. I'm then going to do 3 more punches because that time allows the punch to cool down a little bit, and that lets me squeeze in an extra punch. Depending on what's going on between the pulse armor, like if they're a little bit tankier and they don't get immediately staggered and you have to re-Zimmerman them or punch them one more time, you can sometimes even get 5. So if you're a little slow on the re-stagger but you manage to secure it anyways. So let's go into a punch. I'm going to pop my assault armor. You're going to notice that I've been cooling down. It's going to give me another 3 punches into Zimmerman Coral Oscillator. So yeah, super high, you know, niche, maybe niche depending on how tanky they are, maybe it doesn't even matter, but something to know. What we'll see later in the clips too is another strong tip, which is that when you're staggered, coming out of it with shield is often a great way to counter parries, because Q beam will not, for example, get you out of a kick. It also won't get you out of like certain melee animations that are a little bit slower, like the slicer. The pulse blade is pretty secure, but things like the slicer are very close, and a lot of the times you can interrupt the punish with a shield. So it's a very good habit to, as soon as you're staggered, to instead of QBing out or trying to initiate an attack of your own, pull up the shield first and do like a Zimmerman trade to open up. It's much more likely to get you something in return in a favorable trade, and also mitigate a lot of the damage you might otherwise take in the punish, because even when you're recovered from the stagger in the sense that you can move, you're still in the ACS punish window where you take extra damage. So yeah, using the shield that way is very strong and definitely the optimal solution as soon as you come out of stagger, rather than, you know, melee lunging and whatnot. Alright, I am happy to say that my idea with the tank, or like strategy, works with using the charged coral oscillator, so I never need to get close. The goal with the missiles here is to poke until they're staggered, and then do it on like level ground, and use the charged coral oscillator to do the punish. That way you don't have to get close, and you also take a much bigger chunk of their health. Now, a really good tank player is not going to eat these missiles every time, but the reason I'm not purging the Zimmerman is just in case I miss a missile salvo, I have to poke with the Zimmerman to prevent stagger regeneration. So that's why I'm not keeping it. You'll also notice I'm not doing my whole strategy of switching to Softlock when I'm reloading the missiles. I didn't realize it at the time of this, but that is probably a good strategy as long as the map is not too close that you need to worry about losing track of them when you're when they close the gap, because you can't just go straight back so often. So here we go. I'm going to get the punish. I would recommend saving your assault armor to bail out if they close the gap. They'll pop pulse armor, but that's fine. It'll give you enough time to get away. But I wouldn't even use it for the punish. Just keep it nice and safe. Keep poking with the missiles and hit the coral oscillator. Something else too to probably mention is keep your shield, or don't forget that you have a shield. That's for blocking the, I purged the Zimmerman here because I could realize this guy just wasn't dodging missiles. But keep your shield handy because you should be blocking like nebulas, or sorry, not nebulas, the plasma rifle that has the AoE. You can block that just because it's got an AoE. It's very hard to dodge. This guy is using the, I think that's the nebula, but it's just a straight projectile, which I can actually dodge that. But anytime they get close, just be ready to parry. If you mess up the kiting and they're able to get like some close range shots, just be ready with the parry. Don't forget that that's a really useful tool when they close the gap. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Oh, I whiffed the punish there. So I believe that the range is about 200, but you lunge forward by about 50 meters during the animation. So usually what I've been doing is just make sure you're about 250 away if you're going to initiate the charged choral oscillator punish. And also hold up on the right D-pad if the lock-on is forcing your screen to aim a little bit down. Sometimes it happens. I'm not sure why, but I've seen it where it whiffs anyways just because it aims too low for no reason. Still waiting for a patch on that stuff. Here we're going to look at a kiter and how to manage EN in detail. So one thing to note is that when you're first closing the gap, a lot of the times you're not actually going to try to go in for the stagger. You're actually going to let your feet touch the ground, get your battery in full back. You don't want to be only taking a portion of your battery back and then getting greedy and rushing when you're only at like 3/4. So what we're going to do is we're going to ABN or melee thrust depending on how fast they are, but poking with the missiles until we close the gap. You'll notice that a lot of times I purge the shield. Yeah, there we go. I didn't purge it yet, but you need the EN supply efficiency, and the shield's not really going to do anything because you're basically A-being or melee thrusting the whole time. The Zimmerman is just to poke so that we stagger extend. I missed it there, and you can see the consequences of it being that I have to restart. So I disengage, he let me do it, and get my impact back and start again. So we're mostly staying in missile though, keep in mind. So here I'm waiting for the missile lock. You also got to be kind of careful not to accidentally fire before you get locked on. That is always unfortunate when that happens. I messed up the assault armor punish, but that is the main purpose of the assault armor, and this is going to be to extend our punish. So especially if we stun with the choral oscillator, putting us right next to him, it's a very optimal situation. I seem to be misjudging it a little bit though. I should be poking a little bit more with the missiles in the Zimmerman. Can't remember if I win this one or if I die. I think I died here. But, oh, we got terminal armor. So, no surprise there, kind of a lot of times done that. But, yeah, let's take a look at the EN supply management. So when I rush in, what I'm trying to do at the beginning of the fight is try to take as little damage as possible and body them into the corner of the map or like the wall of the map without spending energy. Force them to go vertical over you. That's when you want to ideally start sending your energy or spending your energy. This guy's not playing as optimally as some of the other players I've fought though, so he's letting me close the gap a little early. So I'll get I got greedy there, did not let my whole battery get back. Fortunately, he ran out of battery at the same time, which meant that we both had to go to the ground, but that can be a costly mistake. The trick with these guys is just not to get greedy for the stagger as fast as possible. Just make sure that when you get the stagger, you've got enough battery to punish. So here I'm not staggering him with the Zimmerman, waiting for my battery to be back, and then now I'm going to go for it because I got enough battery. Pop the armor. And Zimmerman. So yeah, you want to make sure you have enough battery to actually secure your stagger. It's very important not to get greedy. And as a rule of thumb for much higher level players that you play against, just assume that your first approach is not the one where you're actually going to try to close the gap. You're just trying to get close to them to get them to go up, and then you're going to go back. You stay on the ground, let your battery get back, keep your boots on the ground, and wait for battery to be full. And they're going to have to go up in the air, so they still haven't had a chance to regen. And Alula users spend a lot of energy when they QB, so we're kind of in like a bit of a race here. I'm trying to stagger him without getting too greedy as to waste my attempt, while he's trying to build up my impact as much as possible. You have to be really selective with how much you QB, and that's one of the reasons I like the Alba now over the heavier core that I was using with better EN supply, is just the these chase downs in particular I find very difficult. I think it was the Mind Alpha core. You really, like, every bit of energy counts here. It's a race. My EN supply management versus their time, they just want to stall and build up stagger, because if I flop my initial approach, a lot of times it's match over. All right, heavy biped vientos. These are a very interesting fight, and there's a lot of sort of psychology that goes on in here. Using the threat of your assault armor, if you win the first stagger fight, you have a very big advantage, because even if they stagger you, you get a big chunk of damage, and usually into Choral Oscillator again, where that'll be enough to finish them. So you don't even have to wait for the pulse armor to pop. You can just rush right into the assault armor or Choral Oscillator assault armor, or vice versa. But here I'm poking with the missiles, and this player I did have to play smart with when to purge the missiles, because he knew that if I purged it early, he would just run away as soon as he started to build stagger. So here, technically, I feel like he should be going away, but he gets a little greedy. He burned my shield there though, which is really unfortunate. So I'm just trying to get the oscillator up quickly. I sorry, get the oscillator's impact added on as quickly as possible. Into stagger extensions. I should not have popped my armor there. So if they pop their pulse armor too far away, save yours. Wait for their rush down. In this case, I was low on health, but I still could have waited for the rush down into assault armor and gotten another punish for free. So I've started to be a little bit more cautious with the pulse armor against builds that can easily create space, like with the Alula. Unless you're extremely confident, don't just reaction armor. You got to make a quick decision, but it's got to be the right decision, and popping the armor and not getting anything for it can be the decision that costs you the match. So here I make the charged oscillator work, so I've been using it a lot. It works really well, to be honest, especially for these rushdown builds. So yeah, taking advantage of the strategies I mentioned in my other videos. Got an extra 2 punches there. That's a good example of 5 punches. And the oscillator punish is huge here. So I'm very low on impact, but I don't need much damage to finish him off. All I need is an oscillator slash and a Zimmerman. Oh, not even just a Zimmerman. So just stalling there with space. You can see how the backpedaling of this defensive melee is really strong when I didn't have that with my double melee midweight build. That was too slow because the Kakaku's slow boost speed and slow AB speed on top of that. I'm really trying to make him burn a lot of energy with his QB while he tries to rush me down. He's smart though, like he knows what I'm trying to do and he's adapting to my strategy. This is why I'm not purging the missiles. I need these in order to create ranged pressure and to try to vie for the health lead. So he gets in close. Now I've already purged it, I need to now. So you will want to cycle the IG window on this PS shield. By the way, I'm running the PS, not the other one now, just because I found I need the damage reduction for laser builds. So worse against miniguns and arguably Vientos, but better against some of the other builds that were giving me a hard time. So. When A-being away, it's actually better just to wiggle rather than wasting more energy QBing. You'll get more distance out of it. Another subtle sort of tip there. Here I think I'm using the shield. I was a little late, but he's having to play a little bit further away than he likes, and it's making the slicer unreliable on him because my Zimmerman is very scary for point blank, so he's got to really flirt the ideal range of the Vientos to try to win the stagger race, but that comes at the cost of the shield countering the slicer punish. So we're both kind of playing mind games here and realizing the very small margin of error on both of our sides that we have to work within. Okay, the other build that was giving me trouble, the quad laser swap. So using the shield is going to be helpful here because that's kind of one of the main reasons I swapped to the PS shield. It's less forgiving, but being able to mitigate 80% of the damage rather than just, 65 is pretty huge. Also, the impact is slightly better on the PS shield for reduction. I think it has way too many deploys, but I'll take it. And I just didn't want to use the cliche shield. But the strategy here is going to be to missile kite like this. And if your opponent is not wise, you can go for the oscillator charge as well. And they close the gap. We're going to have to swap to the Zimmerman. And you'll notice I'm not really even expecting to go for the melee stagger extension punish here. I just feel like it's too risky. And so I feel like with this build you have to just go with Missile Kite and to sort of treat it like a Nebula tank, although you can get close for the Oscillator slash, but we really got to burn out their battery, AB chasing us down into Coral Oscillator charged ideally. Now if they're smart, they're going to go up as soon as you start the Coral Oscillator, and if they're running the NGI booster, which I think is one of the scarier ones for this loadout rather than the Gridwalker, they have both AB speed and upward momentum, but here this manages to tickle him. We're going to get the... I am going to ditch the missiles now, but the stagger extension unfortunately didn't work on the melee there, so time to reset. AB away, start again. Oh, and you know what? I forgot to mention too, don't forget your assault armor. If they close the gap a little prematurely, just pop it. If you get an oscillator punish, great, but think of it more as a space regaining tool. They're going to pop pulse armor anyway, so you've got it either as a finish or as a one free bailout if they've closed the gap a little faster. And like, let's say you got a little too close when you started your missile kiting and gave them the space too quickly. So yeah, I didn't use my assault armor, I don't think, in that match or the earlier one, but it is still useful both as a way to finish them off if your Coral Oscillator doesn't do enough damage and they don't pop pulse armor on your first punish. Great, but yeah, just don't forget that is there. It is just a harder to use tool though. Okay, a very difficult matchup. The lightweight double Viento on knock legs for extreme hop distance. These guys, if they use the exact right angle for backpedaling and QBing, they can really draw out the initial fight, and it becomes a race with how good is your shielding. As soon as you start hearing those Viento sounds, you want to. I usually just double flash the shield just because I need about 1.1 seconds of IG window. You are going to have to ditch the missiles once they close the gap because you're going to need the punch if you manage to secure a stagger. But it's basically a race, and you want to get the oscillator early. But the better they are at dodging, the harder they make that fight for you. You'll notice the liberal use of the shield is crutch there, and it's forcing him to play again. You can see the slicer gets punished because of the same issue that that was a mistake, by the way. I should have done that. That was a waste of the armor. Yeah, the slicer dilemma of how close can I get when he's got a Zimmerman, but I might miss my punish if I play it too far, which he did. But you can see the angle he's dodging there. It becomes very difficult to secure a QB, a melee thrust. So the best way I can figure to handle that is that just don't get too greedy with the melee thrust. You need to land some Zimmermans as well, otherwise you're getting no impact buildup. It doesn't take much to stagger them. You only got to get 2 Zimmermans and a slash, or a Zimmerman and a slash into a punch. That's another common one because that gives you another melee lunge at the end. But it's a difficult fight if they know how to QB properly and they know how to go up high. Same with the Ransetsu kites. They can jump really high, and the melee thrust just hasn't been balanced in terms of energy cost since they sped up lightweights, unfortunately, and I think they do need to kind of do that. But I guess that's for another video. All right, another very difficult matchup, the heavy biped missiles with miniguns. So I haven't yet tried this with my Softlock kind of tip there, but I do find that these guys can close the gap fast enough with the Brazil, and because I've swapped shields to the PS shields, I just have a hard time mitigating all that damage because of how long the minigun can fire. So I think the best strategy is just to master IG flashing the shield perfectly. I don't do it, but you can see how well it blocked there up until I kind of messed it up here. But basically using those 3 seconds total of IG window to get a couple Zimmermans, like 2 Zimmermans and a Coral Blade slash into punch. You are going to need to purge the missiles against these guys just because you're going to need the punches, and every last bit of punish you can squeeze out in order to win the fights. But I messed up my IG block there, so I took a big smattering of impact, and nothing to be said about that. This one was very close, though. I almost managed to pull this one off. So close to the stagger. It might behoove you to pop assault armor early as well and just get the Coral Oscillator slash in and then AB away when they pop pulse armor to get away. Nice thing about the Coral Oscillator is you can sneak in the punish before the pulse armor activates. So if he's going to rush me down like this, the only thing that made me nervous about it was the amount of missiles he's firing as well. So I think if you can bait him into something like this where they come around the cover, he didn't fall for it here when he went up just to fire more missiles. But it might be an idea for tackling these guys. It is a very difficult matchup though, make no mistake. And Whip's kicks are punishing, but you kind of want them because that little break from the minigun buys you a cooling down time on your oscillator and your shield. Yeah, Whip's the punish there. Your assault armor is definitely going to be more of an offensive tool against these matchups. You want to just get it in for damage and less so countering the pulse armor, because if they pop their pulse armor, even if you counter stagger them, you're going to be very close, and you don't want to be caught with no battery. And a final tip here, for coral missiles, it's really wise to try to fight near a piece of cover where you can position once they fired the missile to make the missile hit the cover. I do it later in this fight, but it is usually a significant part of their kit if they're running the coral missiles in terms of their expected damage. And so if you can, even if it means you have to take something else, like, I don't know, one minigun or a bunch of Ransetsu hits, making sure the coral missile is not in the equation when you go in for your punish is pretty huge, because you have a lot of standby time on the animation when you're punching. The missile will catch up, so it's something to be aware of. This guy's running a little bit light, so I just took the assault armor punish there. I don't care if he pops his pulse armor. At this point, just getting my coral slash in is going to be fatal, so I'm not even worried about if he pops pulse armor. I'll just fly away and just wait for my opportunity to secure one more coral slash. Yeah, so you can see again, if you get them to orbit you counterclockwise, that can often open up windows to get the charge coral oscillator off. I'm getting better with it, and I've noticed many situations where it has become useful. Almost all of them are predicated upon draining the opponent's battery, though. This is a good example of the coral missile intercept. So as soon as he fires it, I redirect towards the cover and try to position above, wait for the detonation, and now I know that he's kind of vulnerable here. I've taken away his big tool for punish, and he's just trying to stall now to wait for his coral missile to come back. He manages to get another one off, but managed to duck it there, just dodging towards him right as the missile was coming at me from the side. Those stun guns are quite dangerous still. I think I underestimated them on my last video. Maybe they don't need a buff. I was thinking maybe they need to be a little stronger, but they are kind of impressive with the amount of impact.